Right. Meet in the war room when ready. I would say let's not do that, and let's take the time to talk to Dorian first. Get to know him a little bit before we advance the main story. Alright? The best question is... Dorian is hanging around with Solace. Pretty sure if they would be friends. Like the question, actually. Currently Act 3. Feel like it's rather slow. Almost feel like I have more random encounters than progress of story in Wrath of the Righteous. But I did visit a hot demon nest Nocticula as part of my demon storyline. Oh, nice! You meet her before? That's cool. With the demon storyline. But yeah, the pacing of the game is at parts a little bit off. But yeah, I can recommend some mods to make combat a little bit faster. Anyway, hey Lester, nice to see you. Happy New Year to you. How are you?
The Inquisition supports free mages. What's next? Elves running Halam-Sharal? Cows milking farmers?
I mean, how about an elf leading the Inquisition?
Give me time. I'm sure I'll surprise you.
I suspect that's untrue. Unless you strip yourself naked and allow the Chantry to flog you into repentance. So that would surprise me. I do wonder if you've considered what this support of yours will do. For mages in general, I mean. The Inquisition is seen as an authority. You've given southern mages license to, well, be like mages back home.
Yeah, I'm sure you would like me naked and flogged by the Chantry, Dorian.
If that means they're anything like you, I approve.
Ha! There aren't many mages back home like me.
I'd believe that.
I never fit in. Bloodstains are so difficult to clean, you see.
So we're doomed to a future of blood magic, then?
Not at first. But you'd be a fool not to see where this could lead. Thing is, the Imperium was once just like the South. Templars, proper circles, all that rot. Then it changed. By inches. Not that this is reason to oppress us. Still, my homeland should be a cautionary tale, not a source of inspiration.
Yeah, I would say Tevinter shouldn't be like an inspiration for anyone. Hopefully.
It occurs to me that I barely know anything about you.
Beyond my being a mage from Tevinter, you mean?
Beyond that, yes.
And beyond my being so charming and well-dressed, which is obvious to anyone.
I love Dorian. He's so sassy.
I'm well aware of your finer qualities, believe me.
Of course I believe you.
So very
The
evasive.
moment I saw you, I thought, there's a man who knows quality. Now, what was I talking about? Ah, yes, me. I am the scion of House Parvis, a product of generations of careful breeding and the repository of its hopes and dreams. Naturally, I despised it all. The lies, the scheming, the illusions of supremacy. That's Tevinter in a nutshell, isn't it? Needless to say, my family was not happy with my choices.
Well, I guess if your family, has quite a high standing in Tevinter, is disappointed in you, you did something right. Do you even dare ask about careful breeding?
What do you mean by generations of careful breeding?
The great families of Tevinter don't have children. They refine traits, weed out the undesirable, and promote the rest. My mother was chosen for my father because magic runs strongly in her blood. Never mind that they loathed each other. They wanted a son who could become Archon to make House Parvis the envy of the Imperium. They got me. A cautionary tale that you should be careful what you wish for.
How romantic, and sounds like Parents of the Year. Yeah, Dorian is awesome. I think Demon Mythic Path is unique that you meet Nocticula that early. She saves you after failing a save and ends up captured and tortured. Ugh. And sends up a circle you can visit her palace at will. Nice. Sounds very cool. I don't think cool enough for me to play Wrath of the Righteous again. It's just way too huge of a game to replay it, I think. It's quite interesting. I was always very curious about what the different mythic paths would do.
I'm getting the impression that you don't care much for your homeland.
On the contrary, I care for my homeland a great deal. There's so much potential. Sadly, we squander it. We refuse to acknowledge how far we've fallen because pretending is easier. We pretend the Qunari can be beaten. We pretend that we're superior to everyone, even our own people. Not everyone feels that way. I don't. Sadly, we're the minority.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone likes arranged marriages. I mean, it's a good question, even if there are more people who oppose the current ways of Tevinter. How many people would you need to actually change something, and how much time?
Why would your family be upset with your choices?
Because I rejected their idyllic plan. If they had their way, by now I'd be married to some unlucky girl from a powerful family. We'd live in luxurious despair, despising each other as I waited to take my father's place in the magisterium. I declined the honor,
Sounds
and
fun.
thus it's best I'm far from home. Less of an embarrassment that way, you see?
Interesting that the why do you care dialogue option just vanished. Which is kind of sad. I'd like to ask that.
Why remain with the Inquisition? Why not go back to Tevinter?
I'm not exactly welcome back home. Not that it matters, I'm quite accustomed to being a pariah. It adds to my charm. I can do more for Tevinter here. If the Venatori succeed, it'll set my homeland back 1,000 years. I'm sure some magisters would disagree, but that's why we kill them.
Well, who needs words? But Dorian, I don't think you need to add anything to your charm. It's not even possible.
I think I've heard enough.
That's too bad. I never tire of talking about myself.
And yeah, absolutely agree, Diana, that Baldur's Gate 3 is so much better paced than Wrath of the Righteous. I mean, Wrath of the Righteous is also a really nice game, really enjoyed playing it, but it's just whole different levels, I would say.
I'd like to ask you about Tevinter.
Ah, yes. Everyone outside the Imperium always seems quite fascinated by it. Probably why they come up with so many ridiculous tales. Flying cows over Minrathous. It's madness. All right, that one's actually true, but the cows didn't have wings. I digress. Anything in particular you wanted to know?
Oh boy. But I would disagree on the first note. I think also the people in Tevinter are really fascinated with Tevinter. I mean, them thinking they're so superior to everyone. Tevinter sounds like a great place. Depends on who you are, I would say. If you're a magister, yes. If you're a mage, likely. If you're someone else, nope. Especially if you're an elf, definitely not.
Just how often is blood magic used there?
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
That's what any magister would tell you. They'd be convincingly offended by the notion too. Of course, what people call blood magic here and what we consider blood magic are two different things.
What's considered actual blood magic in Tevinter?
Blood magic isn't inherently dangerous. Using your own blood or that of a willing participant, what's the harm? The problem is that what's permitted only gets you so much power. And what if you need more? You always need more. That's where we get into sacrifices and demon summoning. None of that is done. Not officially. Behind closed doors, it's a different story. Real blood magic can give you an edge, a leg up against your opponents. It's safe to assume that any mage of rank does it. The rest are quietly shut out of power, to put it bluntly.
The typical everyone is doing it, so we don't look at it too closely. Great. But I mean, I think he raises a good point that blood magic doesn't have to be inherently evil, but usually it's used like that, with demon communing and all this stuff. Or sacrificing others, so... I'm not gonna answer that.
You'd think the Templars would object.
I imagine they did, long ago. Once, their investigations might have been sincere. Then their balls were cut off. Too inconvenient. Nowadays, only the friendless are accused. Most of them probably innocent.
So, even there, it's kinda a witch hunt with the Templars.
There must be some mages who oppose this.
Of course. I do. And I'm not entirely alone. Occasionally, there'll be a magister who makes noise, and then the reform talk begins. All very patriotic. Meanwhile, that magister will be quietly shunned. Chances are, surprise, it's learned he was a Maleficar all along. Most learn to keep quiet. Me? I enjoy the allure of pariahhood.
Yay, politics and people vanishing. And I don't think Dorian can stay quiet for too long. Way too talkative for that. Blood magic is fun. That's what the demon said.
Anyone who talks about the Imperium mentions slavery. It's the center of the slave trade.
Ah. That is true.
And? Did you have slaves?
Not personally, but my family does and treats them well. Honestly, I never thought much about it until I came south. Back home, it's how it is. Slaves are everywhere. You don't question it. I'm not even certain many slaves do.
Yeah, I mean, if it's in the system, I can believe that even lots of the slaves just accept it. I mean, it doesn't make it any better.
Well, we don't have slaves in the South.
In the south, you have alienages, slums, both human and elven. The desperate have no way out. Back home, a poor man can sell himself. As a slave, he could have a position of respect, comfort, and could even support a family. Some slaves are treated poorly, it's true. But do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better?
On the other hand, being property, and no freedom at all. And I mean, the other thing is that elves are just really looked down upon in Tevinter. And I mean, yeah, treated poorly, just looking at Fenris.
At least they're free. They don't have slavery forced on them.
You think people choose to be poor and oppressed? I doubt it. I don't know what it's like to be a slave, true. I never thought about it until I saw how different it was here. But I suspect you don't know either. Nor should you believe that every tale of Tevinter excess is the norm.
There's an Imperial Chantry, isn't there? With its own divine.
You people aren't supposed to talk about the Black Divine, are you? If you mention him outside the Imperium, people make that face, like you're urinating in public. But yes, we do have the Chantry, or a version of it. Night and day comparing it to yours.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like the Chantry is just a ruse of the Magisters, right? It's interesting that it's called the Black Divine. I wonder if it's a title from the outside, or they call it Black Divine. It's just interesting, because of we know of the Tevinter Magisters, like Corypheus and the Golden City, and then it being turned into the Blackened City. It's kind of interesting that it's the Black Divine as well. So it sounds more like something the Chantry would say about the Tevinter Divine. I've had that too elsewhere. City Elf Origin and Dragon Age Origins made me hate human nobles. True. I didn't play that one, especially because Origins doesn't work for me on this computer, unfortunately. But in general, elves seem to have it quite bad, and racism seems to be something very inherent in Dragon Age.
Is the Imperial Chantry so different from ours?
Not in theory. The main difference is in the whole magic is meant to serve man, not rule over him business. Back home, ruling the unwashed masses is serving them, for the good of the Imperium. Perhaps it started with good intentions, but these days it's academic. The circles are in command.
But they are probably also quite different.
There are circles of magi in the Imperium.
We don't have dismal little mage prisons, if that's what you mean. They're academies, prestigious ones. We have Templars as well, but they don't cancel spells or whatever your Templars do. They're soldiers.
They don't use lyria.
Ha! As if there'd be any left for them. They watch for abuse of magic, yes, but only those who are weak or who fall out of favor get dealt with. Mostly they enforce their magisterium's edicts. The Chantry smiles and nods from the sidelines.
But at least that way of mage circles sounds way better and less oppressive and everything. Not just like, yeah, just as Dorian said, no prisons. No harassing of mages. But hey, harassing of slaves and everyone else. Guess that you gotta choose.
Do you really call him the Black Divine?
We don't call him that, oh no. In the Imperium, he's the true divine. The woman sitting on the Sunburst throne is some backwater pretender. It all stems from a disagreement over Andraste. Marvelous, isn't it?
What kind of disagreement? Is it just about magic?
Why would they disagree over Andraste?
It's not my field of expertise, but the Imperium believes Andraste was a mortal woman, a mage. Down south, they say, no, she's the bride of the Maker, ascended to his side, divine provenance, a blah blah blah. We feel better believing Andraste was one of us. Makes executing her less damning, you see. So we elected a man as divine, the South declared war, and we've been feuding cousins ever since.
I mean, the thing is, those two statements about Andraste don't have to be mutually exclusive, do they?
So the Imperial Divine is always a man.
All the better to distinguish him from that other one, yes. Don't think there aren't a number of female magisters who bristle at that. Why can't they be divine after all? Same reason you never see a man on the Sunburst throne. Because that's how it's always been done. Excellent reasoning.
Reminds me of the anti-popes in real history. True. Or in general, just like all schisms in religion.
Do you consider yourself Andrastian?
The big question. It might surprise you that I do consider myself Andrastian. I simply do not believe in the Chantry. It is a relic, whether back home or here in the south. Something from a bygone age desperately clinging to relevance. It's not an opinion that makes me popular.
I can respect that. But I mean, Aiden doesn't believe in the Maker or Andraste, just in the Elven gods, so... Can't really say anything, but since we also don't really like the Chantry, let's agree.
I share your opinion, actually.
That's not surprising, considering what the Inquisition represents. I'll say this. I may not believe in the Chantry, but I believe in you.
In me?
That the Maker sent you, whether through Andraste or fate. Cassandra is not wrong. You are what we needed most at the moment we needed it. That's what they will say in ages to come.
Hopefully, I think that mainly depends on whether we are successful or not. Andraste was probably a dreamer mage. That sounds really fitting to at least the bits and pieces you get to find out, sort of what the Chantry tells. And I mean, since the Southern Chantry uses everything to justify oppression of mages, and also the whole thing about magic has to serve man and not rule over them, I could really imagine them just twisting it and what they have of information about Andraste, just to make it appear she wasn't a mage. Then again, I guess the same you could also say for Tevinter the other way around, that they want to make her a mage to justify mages being in power as magisters. Well, played Origins back then. City Elf and Dwarf Commoner was kind of the saddest, especially City Elf. I played Origins years ago, not when it released, but a few years more back then. But not the whole way through, because it also crashed at some point. But I started the Mage Origin, because I always do mages, and the Dalish Elf background. That was also really nice. The Chosen One! One mage to free them all. Chantry is a bad place, apostate for life. With that I can definitely agree. Yeah, we also have to talk again to Vivian and bicker a little bit.
You don't seem like the religious sort, to be honest.
If you define religious as sitting in a chantry and listening to a blithering hen tell you how to live, then no. If you define it as believing in the possibility that something larger than yourself exists, then yes, by all means. The world is bigger than I, even bigger than you. It laughs at all the things we think we know. The Maker doesn't need me to believe, but I do. The thought of no one at all watching out for us is too frightening.
On the other hand, believing that there's something bigger than you, or believing explicitly in Andraste and the Maker, are very different things, I would say. Please no, can we just leave Vivian at a fire station as an abandoned companion? I don't know, can she leave? Because I think she might do that if we continue our path.
Let me ask you something else.
So many questions.
You're just a very interesting man, Dorian.
It seems strange that an entire empire would be ruled by mages.
Strange? Why are you less qualified to rule than some tart with a fancy crown? Actually, the fiction in the Imperium is that mages don't rule. The Magisterium rules. That magisters are all mages is considered a convenient technicality.
Oops, it just happened to be that way. You can leave, but you need to really try to make people leave. Okay.
What is the Magisterium exactly?
The upper house of the Imperial Senate, and the only part worth having a seat on. Those seats are split among the circles of Magi, the Chantry, and the major families. All mages now. It's odd that outside the Imperium, you use Magister like it applies to every Tevinter mage.
If you're not a Magister, then what are you called? No special title?
Real.
I'm an Altus, which is almost as good as a Magister, depending on who you ask.
I've never heard of an Altus.
Upper class. Those families who trace descent from the Dreamers, the first prophets of the old gods.
Noble, basically.
If you're a mage and you're not Altus, then you're later. Lower class. If you're not a mage at all, you're Soperati. That's everyone else. We do love our fancy words.
Upper class, lower class, non-mage. Oh boy.
I thought the Archon ruled over the Imperium.
Well, yes. Technically, he can overrule laws passed by the Magisterium, but that never happens. Even so, he gets to appoint new Magisters, which means all the families vie madly for his favor. Thus, the Archon gets invited to all the parties. The truest path to Tevinter influence, let me tell you.
If it's a fiction, that means mages do rule then.
Yes and no. Let me put it this way. Mages do rule, but not all mages are equal. If you're not from the right family, chances are you don't rule anything. Maybe you're even a slave. The idea that anyone could be a mage, however, keeps the masses placated.
Can anyone be a mage?
Technically, the potential runs mostly in bloodlines, but it's been known to happen. More importantly, commoners believe it can. Tevinter legend is chock full of mage heroes from humble origins. So they hold out hope. Someday my son or my son's son will be a mage. Someday. Poor sods don't realize that means he'll be a quaestor at the arse end of the 100 Pillars, at best.
What does that mean?
Being a quaestor isn't a good thing.
I imagine the average non-mage likes to think so. Counting numbers and shuffling papers all day is better than many occupations after all. If you're a second-class citizen among a pack of piranha, however, your outlook changes.
Let me ask you something else.
Of course.
I don't know if it's even worth asking the question, like, could Tevinter be an ally? Because, I mean, looking at... I mean, of course it's just one Magister, but, like, looking at what, oh gosh, what was his name again? The Magister from the last quest line? The father of Felix. Why do I know Felix's name, but not Magister... You know which one I mean. And if you don't, well... I mean, looking at what they did to the mages, and just for personal gain, and not really supporting the Inquisition, I don't think Tevinter could be an ally, and even if they were, not a reliable one. Yeah, that's what I gathered in general, is that all the origin quests in, well, Dragon Age Origins are kinda bitter. Alexius, thanks, right.
I'm wondering if the Imperium would be a useful ally.
I'd think you'd be more concerned whether or not they'd support the Venatori. They won't, of course. At least, not officially. They'll disavow all knowledge of dangerous cultists. Secretly, many Magisters will rejoice at the idea. And if the South falls to chaos in the meantime, all the better.
It would be in the Imperium's best interest to help. Surely it could use allies.
I think the Imperium gave up on the idea of allies a long time ago. We've been fighting the Qunari for what, 200 years off and on? It's a point of pride that we go it alone. They'll sneer at the South behind their silk handkerchiefs and say, "You've had it easy for far too long." Let's not forget that the Inquisition seems to be an arm of the Orlesian Chantry. Anathema so far as they're concerned.
Yeah, and Tevinter think they're superior, so they don't need allies.
We're not part of the Chantry. The Chantry opposed the Inquisition's formation.
You think that matters? Don't be silly. The Herald of Andraste. Your very title smacks of the Southern Chantry. You may as well be a heathen. I think they're far more frightened what you'll do if you succeed.
That's all I wanted to know.
Fair enough.
Right. We can ask him so many questions. But I mean, besides really loving Dorian as a person, I also really like that you have actually someone from Tevinter in your entourage. It's just really cool.
You said Alexius was a mentor of yours.
He was my patron, sponsoring me to the higher levels of the Circle of Magi. In return, my successes were his. I had a lot of successes, naturally.
It's like science.
Alexius was most pleased. He and I used to talk over brandy about the corruption. How we could one day make real change in the Imperium. And then he gave up. He stopped trying.
And it sounds like a little bit like in science when you like do your PhD and your professor also gets like part of the prestige that you for everything you publish.
Why did he give up?
On a journey to Hossberg, a Darkspawn raid killed his wife and sickened his son. I remember hearing the news. He hadn't been there, you see. Alexius was convinced he could have protected them. And the guilt tore him up. I helped him with his research for a while, and then we drifted apart.
So yeah, that's why they couldn't help Felix in any way. Poor guy. Hey Luna, nice to see you, and Happy New Year to you too. How are you?
You mean you fought with him?
I told him to snap out of it, move on. I thought I had all the answers. Later, I regretted my hasty words. But we didn't speak again until he approached me for the Venatori. Too much pride, I suppose. Plus, I was busy drinking. One must have priorities.
Oh wow. Oh wow, Dorian. I'm okay, thank you. How are you, Ethan? I'm great. Just a little bit tired, but I think that's very normal after New Year's Eve. But yeah, really happy and enjoying playing some more. And I still have this week on vacation, so I don't have to stress about work or anything. I can just spend lots of time playing and doing stuff for YouTube and stuff, or meeting up with friends. So yeah, I'm great. Thank you. I mean, yeah, the thing is, Dorian always seemed kind of sad about what Alexius turned into, right?
Was it hard being away from him?
It was hard not having a patron, yes. I'm not exactly built to fit in. At any rate, he's fallen so low, I doubt he'll ever get up. Sad, really.
And oh boy, I know I'm not in a position to talk about that after wearing that very revealing armor for the first 3 streams, I think. But Dorian, you look awesome, but aren't you kind of cold?
Have you gone to see Alexius yet? He's in the cells.
Not yet, no. I saw him before they locked him up. He looked despondent, broken. Not the man I remember, nor the one I want to. I suppose the Inquisition will judge him eventually. I wonder if there's any chance they'll show him mercy. He hardly deserves it, but for Felix's sake. I can't help hoping there's something left of the man I once knew.
Well, I guess this will be up to us in the future. My favorite companion.
So I take it you're Dalish? Is that the correct word here?
Isn't it kind of like correct everywhere? Cause it's like the Elvish word for elves?
Dalish is the correct word everywhere.
We don't have Dalish clans coming northward, for obvious reasons. So I've never met one of your people before, although I've heard about them. Little. I hope this won't be an issue between us. I am here to help you deal with the Venatori, after all.
I mean, as long as he doesn't say anything mean, which I don't think so. When I was 20, I was not tired the next day, but these days I feel like I need a week to recover, even if I only have the first off. Or I'm 26, I'm not that old, I guess, but I still feel that.
And I appreciate your help, Dorian.
Excellent. Mutual appreciation is a grand way to begin.
I should go.
You know where I'll be.
I will return, Dorian. Count on that.